Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is the Rudy Giuliani Show. And we are in New Hampshire, although it might look like we're at Vatican Square. But behind us, of course, is Vatican.
If you want to feel and look your best, you need to check out Pure Health Research. They have 45 premium health supplements that are designed to help you with everyday health goals. Whether it's boosting your energy or trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone up, or even reducing swelling in your legs, Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients, backed by clinical research and manufactured right here in the USA. And here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use promo code Lindell at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's nothing to lose. So head over to purehealthresearch.com now, explore their 45 amazing supplements, and save 35% before this deal ends with promo code Lindell.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory, or it's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers,
major
who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Usually be the Protestant churches. A lot of conversions from Episcopal Lutheran to Catholic, where the church have gone in a very woke direction, some indistinguishable from meetings of the Democrat National Committee. Things like holy days for climate change and major embrace not just of gay marriage, but gay priests, gay bishops, female priests, female bishops. Oh my goodness! Church obligations are discretionary rather than obligatory. Interdenominational, mixed-up liturgies that don't go back to look. Let's face it. All Christian liturgy both the two ancient ones would be the Roman liturgy and the Eastern liturgy. That was done in Latin, and the one that was done in Greek, or sometimes the native language of the Eastern Church. They were all one church for the first 1,000 years with major subdivisions. And most people don't realize that the Roman Catholic Church has something like 22 subdivisions. One is dominant. It's called the Latin Rite, although there's a great dispute now about the Latin Mass and a very, very strange hostility to it among the influence of the woke and the so-called progressives in religion. It's the one I really don't understand. I mean, the disputes on abortion and the disputes on a female priesthood, a married priesthood, the disputes on some of the other things obviously emerge from the turmoil in our society, and they emerge. And I'm sorry to say this, and please don't get insulted, but it's really true. It emerges from Marxism. I mean, in a way, Pope Francis, who I respect for the good things that he did, but disagree with for the terrible things that he did, is easily explainable as a product of liberation theology, which is a product of Marxism. I don't know why people are struggling so much to try to figure that out. He grew up in Latin America when liberation theology was all the rage, and the self-important Jesuits embraced it. The Jesuit order has always been a problem order in the church, largely because they are to the church what the State Department is to the United States government. They're smarter than everyone. And remember, being smarter than everyone may in fact be the original sin. What was the sin of Adam and Eve? Satan convinced them that they would know more than God by eating from the tree of knowledge, eating the apple. And then, why do they fool you, making you think God knows more than you? That's a theme of the first chapter of Genesis, and it's a theme of Das Kapital. It's also a theme of Hitler. It's a theme of Stalin. Got to get God out of there. You're smarter than God. It infects. It's infected the ability of people to worship God, accept God, accept and make the leap of faith. That's probably been the most significant. And it's going on right now in this major division within the Catholic Church. The thing about the Catholic Church that draws so many people is at least there is an argument for traditional rights. Almost all the others have given it up. I'm talking about Christian traditions. We accept the Orthodox from this because they're in a totally different intellectual sphere, or a totally different they're not separate, but there's a division. They have their own very strong history and philosophy. If you want to criticize, you could say some of them are more nationalist organization than churches, meaning they carry the nationality. The big ones, Russian and Greek are very, very big, but the smaller ones tend to be the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, for example, or the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Now, it carries the nationality along with the religion, kind of like Israel. But in any event, that gets us a little too far. But I've been doing so much reading on theology and the disputes going on so that I'm up on them for the conclave that it's the top of my mind right now. But tomorrow will be a very, very solemn day. And even though there was great disagreement with Pope Francis by many, many Catholics, including some bishops that were suspended for reasons that appear to be authoritarian, as opposed to having, like, embracing the Latin Mass or questioning the wisdom of some of the what appeared to be socialist, communist tendencies in the Pope. and acceptance of relative, either what we would call relative morality or the absence of morality. These were legitimate debates, and it was a very, very strong hand that suggests, again, the influence of Marxism and liberation philosophy of, suspending these bishops who were well within the legitimate scope for discussion of theological and moral matters. And bishops can't be just cast aside as the Pope. The Pope is the final authority, but it would be like Peter casting aside St. John or St. Thomas or his brother St. James. So the Pope is the successor of Peter, as you will be very, very much made aware of at both tomorrow and at the installation of mostly in the installation of the new Pope, where the beautiful hymn or chant "Tu es Petrus" is recited over and over again. You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. And the person who is being buried tomorrow, and the person selected, is, in the belief of the oldest living Christian church, the successor of St. Peter. So that'll all be taken up tomorrow. President Trump will have a front row seat with Melania Trump. So the United States will be very well represented, as will most of the countries, not China, which makes sense. It's an atheistic communist country, and not Russia, which pretends to be a religious country, but Putin's religion is murder, as we're finding out. Right. So let's go to the Ukraine for a moment. Both Zelensky and Putin are, it seems to me, barriers to peace. But there is no question that the more difficult barrier and the more guilty party here is Putin. To even put them on a par of some degree of moral equivalency, it isn't as bad a mistake as putting the Hamas and Israel on that par, or Palestine and Israel on that par. But it is very erroneous and very damaging, because there are major problems with Zelensky, and I've recited them over and over again. And it's unfortunate that Ukraine had no more to straighten itself out as a legitimate country. Leadership, not the people. I love the people. The people are wonderful people. This is like not as bad, but it's like talking about Poland during the time of Pope John Paul II and Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. The government was horrible and the people are wonderful. Well, that's true here. It's the government and the oligarchy. I mean, if AOC and the old jerk from Vermont, what's his name? Bernie Sanders, right? Right. Larry Davis. Right. If they had any common sense, which they don't, or they had anything else they were dedicated more than communism, they would be going to Ukraine and trying to straighten that oligarchy out. We don't really have an oligarchy. They do. They have neutrally, before everybody made Zelensky into a saint, they were legitimately thought of as one of the most corrupt governments on earth. They are, personal experience, they are one of the most corrupt governments on earth, and they have not materially changed under Zelensky, and Zelensky was a part of it. All true. And is there a certain part of Zelensky that wants this war to continue so they can collect money, and therefore he doesn't jump for a solution? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But is there also a legitimate part because there is a degree of patriotism, even in the crooked Ukrainian oligarchs, that doesn't exist with the Russians? The answer is yes. There's a very hard thing to explain to you, because degrees of, I don't know that I'd call the Ukrainians evil. I would call them dishonest and corrupt. Evil's a really big word, designed for mass killers. The Ukrainians are killers the way the mafia were killers. Ukrainian oligarchs, organized crime, Zelensky's mentor, people like that. Organized crime was not Hitler, and organized crime was not Putin. Putin is a mass killer. He'll wipe out large numbers of people, and he is someone who really doesn't give a damn for his own people. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lost, I don't know, could he have lost 1 million troops in Ukraine? Is that possible? You know, it was always thought of the great generals, MacArthur, Eisenhower, Patton, people who served under them. I remember I had a relative who served under Patton, and he said that, you know, they always talked about how tough he was, but you felt under Patton that he'd give his life for you. If a bullet was coming, he'd jump in front of it. And he was always very careful about how he used his men so he didn't lose a maximum number of them. And that was also very, very often said about the great Dwight Eisenhower and the great Douglas MacArthur. Part of how a great general develops morale amongst his best and smartest soldiers, right? He knows I'm putting my life at risk, but he's doing everything I can to make sure it's being done for the right reason and in the right way with the right support. And when he loses one, his heart bleeds. Can you see Putin's heart bleeding for any of the Russians that he got killed? I don't even know if he cares. And you saw an element of that in Zelensky, too, in the way he's holding up the mineral deal when he might have been able to nail Putin by surprise right at the very beginning, but he caused the first delay. Now, having said that, right now, 70 to 80% of the blame has to be put on Putin. And what he did last night is it's a war crime. There's no reason to attack civilian Kyiv at this point. Oh, did he kill 10 civilians last night? He's not hitting. Look, Putin. I met Putin at Ground Zero, first time. Then I met him a second time, and I spent time with him in Moscow. It was right after the killing, the murders in Beshlav of the children, when you would think he'd be the most sympathetic and I would feel the most connection with him. And I did feel a connection with him, by the way. And I'll explain that to you. It's kind of complicated. But I told my friends when I came back, and eventually I had to tell President Bush, because President Bush made the comment that he saw something in his eyes about God or something, and he pretends to be quasi-religious. Putin does. I said, Mr. President, I looked in his eyes and all I saw was a stone-cold killer like the many that I put in jail. I have experience with them. I didn't mean to be arrogant, like, you know, I really understand killers and you don't. But I had no doubt about it. The minute I met him at Ground Zero, I could feel a difference in the way Putin reacted to the deaths there, which he had no sympathy with. It wasn't as if he was in favor of those deaths. But I could feel a disconnection that a professional murderer has to death, because I've dealt with so many professional murderers. Let's say Mitterrand and Putin. And Mitterrand was somewhat of an opponent and somewhat of an ally, but certainly not like. But he wasn't like a complete supporter of Bush or the Republicans. I could feel his heart breaking when he looked at it. I could feel with 97, 98 people who were often the ones that I would have to go with at the request of the State Department or the world leaders. I could feel it. I could feel the shock of when they saw it. Even President Bush, when he saw it in a helicopter coming over before he came down, he looked at it and he said, "Oh my God, it's so big." Because he had seen it on television. They all had. And television never really captured how big the destruction was. Henry Kissinger wanted to walk in it. Not all of them did. And Henry said it's the first thing that reminded him after the war. Putin was charming and totally unaffected. And we could go into more detail about that. But I don't know where the advice is coming from to my good friend. But Putin needs a big, massive kick in the ass. And right now, instead of talking about returning all of his sanctions if he makes whatever, the sanctions should be put on him until he makes peace. And he should be impoverished if he doesn't get it done this weekend. And the terms have to change. We showed them last night, and they are way. I mean, if they were to make peace on this basis, it's Putin wins, Ukraine, NATO, and America loses. Trump's one of Trump's secrets to success will eviscerate someone. The secret to success is that he's another Reagan. My God, he'll bomb us. My God, who knows what he'll do? My God, he'll make a deal in which he favors the wrong side substantially, and he can be charmed out of making a tough deal. Will be the answer. So we're going to take a short break, and we will be right back.
Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? Well, I recently saw a video he made, and I was shocked. That guy's amazing, and he's staying active well into his 80s. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a very special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Lindell. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Lindell. You won't believe how simple it is. If you want to feel and look your best, you need to check out Pure Health Research. They have 45 premium health supplements that are designed to help you with everyday health goals. Whether it's boosting your energy or trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone up, or even reducing swelling in your legs, Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients, backed by clinical research and manufactured right here in the USA. And here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use promo code Lindell at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's nothing to lose. So head over to purehealthresearch.com now, explore their 45 amazing supplements, and save 35% before this deal ends with promo code Lindell.
You all know I stand by the truth. And if I put my name on something, I truly believe in it. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to something I'm incredibly proud of. My own brand of organic specialty coffee, Rudy Coffee. Believe me when I say it's the best coffee you'll ever try. It's smooth, rich, chocolatey, and gentle on your stomach. It's so good, I even recommend drinking it black. It comes in 3 varieties, including what I promise is the best decaf you'll ever have. You can order now by scanning the QR code on your screen or by visiting rudy.coffee. By supporting Rudy Coffee, you're not just treating yourself to exceptional coffee, you're also supporting our cause, the cause of truth, justice, and American democracy. You'll also be supporting the Call to Action nonprofit, which is devoted to helping veterans and first responders, so you can make a difference and taste the difference by ordering today at rudy.coffee. This is Rudy Giuliani. Sorry, you interrupted my negotiation with Ted over how we're going to share the food. Ted and I rode back from New York today. We had a long trip back. It was very tough on me. I only slept half the way. He drove the whole thing. But
your knowledge you were a navigator.
No. We watched some wonderful documentaries on the Pope and the selection of the Pope and Raymond Arroyo. Do you know who Raymond Arroyo is? Raymond Arroyo is a very, very frequent guest on the Ingram Show.
Yes.
And when I used to be a very frequent guest on the Ingram Show and a very frequent guest on Fox until they excluded me, I was very friendly with Raymond. And I've been listening to Raymond's podcast on, which is really on the Catholic religion. And of course, when he was on Laura's show, which he still is, I believe, but he used to be on almost every night, we would have these conversations on religion. And I always engage people in that because it takes me back to my training to be a priest and my many years of studying theology. And it's probably one of the subjects I like to talk about most, not just the Catholic religion, all religions. And his podcast is fabulous, and I commend it to you. I particularly commend the ones dealing with Pope Francis, and he was a bit of a critic of Pope Francis, contemporary at the time, like the removal of Bishop Strickland of, what was he, Tyler? Was it Tyler, Texas? Tyler, Texas, yeah. A city I happen to know. One of my first commencement addresses was given at the University of Texas at Tyler, after Providence College in Rhode Island, and spent a day with overnight with the Dominican priests who became favorites of mine. So I want to show you, if we could show, I want to show you the attack that Putin made on Kyiv last night, I think. Last night. This is a civilian city. I don't know. We're winding down theoretically and going toward peace. If you want to hit the troops, I don't know. I actually don't see why they're killing each other right now. If you have any respect or caring for human life, I rate their caring for human life in the case of Putin non-existent, and in the case of Zelensky, not the first priority. But there's no I'm very opposed to Zelensky. I don't think Ukraine goes anywhere under that guy. He's too much controlled by the oligarchs, and he's too crooked. But there's no comparison. It's just a different moral sphere. So look at that. That's one of the bombs being exploded before it hits the earth over apartment buildings in Kyiv, and I think 10 civilians are dead. Talking about, the Israelis and the Ukrainians don't take the civilians and bring them out on the front lines and put them in front of the tanks. And that's what it looked like after the bomb hit. And the firefighter, I believe it was a firefighter doing the rescue, is carrying a child, I believe, trying to carry the child, if you look carefully, out of the fire. Look at that. Look, I mean, I'm used to that going to fires in New York, but they weren't set by a human being on purpose. However, the problem is that given the way this war went, and here I put the full blame on Biden. It is true there never should have been a war. And under a competent president, not just Trump, under a competent president, it would not have taken place. Because Putin, for all that I've said about him, I'll tell you the other part. He is not an irresponsible, crazy, reckless idiot. He can make wrong decisions. We all can, even if we're brilliant. But he's not. He will not irresponsibly throw them into nuclear war. He could throw them into nuclear war, but he won't do it irresponsibly. He's not going to attack under a president where there's the slightest possibility there may be a retaliation. And under Trump, the first 4 years, there was sure a possibility. Under Biden, he kind of knew from the beginning there wasn't a possibility, but he sure as hell waited for Afghanistan, and he waited for a long period of his torturing Biden and getting him to say, and I can't imagine how stupid our press is that they couldn't pick this up. This was all a mating dance to make sure that it was safe to make war. He would constantly get Biden, and Biden being stupid and the people around him being anti-American, and would constantly say, no boots on the ground, no boots on the ground, no boots on the ground, no boots on the ground. And every time they said that, they were telling Putin, don't worry, nothing's going to happen. The most that'll happen is we'll give them arms, but we're not going to put troops in there. And that ended up, by our giving them arms, it ended up frustrating their complete victory, which is to take all of Ukraine, if in fact that was their goal. But it did give them most of what they wanted, which is secure Crimea and a land bridge, meaning a complete Russian corridor from Russia through Ukraine, which they obtained and now have and want to keep. And I am not, and I'm going to show you what that means. It's right there. If we want to take a look at it, it's right there. And it's the light pink or whatever color you call that portion. It's for oblasts, if you want states, and except for even a little parts of Luhansk, but except for Luhansk, there's about anywhere from 15 to about 10 to 15% of each of the oblasts that they do not possess. Usually the northern part. Now, number one in the negotiations, those of course shouldn't be given to them because that will give Ukraine a presence in each one of the oblasts. Of course, Ukraine should retain their access to the Black Sea, which I thought Russia was going to cut off, by the way, by going from Kherson that you see there, right across and covering that entire coast. It doesn't, and they shouldn't be allowed to get that. They also should be required to give back somewhere around 5% of what they've taken for two reasons: so that they don't have a complete victory, and number two, so that we can get from them some proportionate share of the minerals and other things that we want. And we want it not to enrich ourselves. We want it so that we can compete with China, which is for the good of Ukraine. This is Zelensky's big mistake, dicking around with that deal. Whether he knows it or not, it's in his best interest. No, you see, here's the problem. The deal is in the best interest of his people, not of him, because he ain't going to get any money from that. He wants the war to go on if it has to, because plenty of money is going to be pumping in and they can grab it. You think it all goes to the troops, you're out of your mind. And you think if it goes to the American industrial complex, the crooked Ukrainians don't get their hands on it, you're also out of your mind. But this money that would be generated in this joint American Ukrainian program run out of the highest levels of our government would really all be for the purpose of having us quickly and miraculously catch up on China so we don't have to depend on them for crucial minerals and other items that are going to be necessary to produce the massive increase in energy that we're going to need, not for cars, but for quantum computing, high-level computing. So Giuliani's peace proposal is Russia gets to keep the road to the now complete road from Russia to Crimea. Zelensky, you're going to have to give up Crimea. You really didn't fight for it. This doesn't even have anything to do with Biden. This goes back to Obama. They took it then. And if you were to take a vote, the only place I think you'd win would be in Crimea with the Russian allegiance to Crimea. The rest, you could have won it before 2014, but you're not going to win it now because they all hate you, like they hate you in Kharkiv that used to be your city. And that I know personally. So I would say one that we could paint as a victory and they could paint as a victory would be if they had to give it back about 5 to 8% of the 20% that they took, and that would include about a third to half of the valuable mineral lands that we should add to the other 2/3 we're getting from the rest of Ukraine. So I believe that I could come away and say America did a good job. Otherwise, whatever I say, they're going to say Putin outfoxed everybody. And this is the reason why. Right now, the Witkoff proposal is Russia gets everything. They get, you see it there, the chart? Let's go to the chart. Formal U.S. recognition of Crimea, de facto recognition of all those areas I showed you, a pledge that the U.S. would not support Ukraine going into NATO, That should be qualified, by the way. Right now, unless you substantially change the criteria for NATO and the EU, Ukraine can't get in. It's too crooked. They kept other countries out and are keeping other countries out because they haven't made the changes that Ukraine is even close to making. Lifting sanctions to boost Russia's economy? Well, only if they give us everything we want. Not if they're going to take everything, because they're getting everything then. And opportunities for more economic cooperation with the U.S. That's in exchange for givebacks. On the other side, Ukraine gets, as Italians would say, ugats. They get a robust security guarantee. Ain't robust because it's not going to include the U.S. I don't know. I kind of wouldn't count on France to defend me. Russia would return a small portion of the Kharkiv Oblast, which is not even in what I showed you, which they don't really have. And I can tell you that because I have very, very close relations to Kharkiv. Spent a lot of time there and helped them build a security center. And navigation rights on the Dnieper River, which they have right now, and assistance in post-war rebuilding. So, in essence, Ukraine gets nothing. They get a very, very weak security guarantee based on countries that don't like to fight or had to be forced to, and are being forced to build up their armies. They didn't do it on their own. And Russia gets everything that it wants. And this will be a major defeat for President Trump. You've got to be able to get them to give back some of that land, and not just useless land, but the land that supports what is in fact a very, very strong advance on American security, which is having our own secure group of minerals that starts to move us up. You know, if we and I will say the Biden administration, once they realized we were so far behind, has built us up slowly. And of course, it's tremendously hindered by their ridiculous green idiotic policies. But they got us up to about 13%. When we get ourselves up to about 30%, and we'll be able to get by and challenge them, particularly since in many other areas we're ahead of them. So I don't know if Russia will get us there, if Ukraine will get us there all the way, but it'll sure give us a big hike in it. I mean, we're doing things with North Korea and other places to accomplish the same thing. So, you know, given our usual approach, which is we think we can't do it and then we overdo it, this would be part of the overdoing of it, and make the deal worth it for us and for Ukraine. And then it would also have America much more invested in Ukraine, including maybe helping them toward the goal of becoming an honest country, rather than using them like the Democrat parties and Biden did as a cash cow, which after all contributes. We say to them, you shouldn't be corrupt. And they say to us, well, some of the worst corruption has been your Democrat politicians. The other thing we have all throughout this, you got to keep an eye on what's going on in Israel. And you get the sense that we're slipping toward, and again, it could be the same set of advisors that we're slipping toward an agreement with Iran. I mean, let's stop playing games now, because this is about the survival of Israel. Didn't we really give that up when we rejected the Obama? They had an agreement. What does it matter what Iran agrees to if the Ayatollahs do? They're not going to follow it. And you're going to accomplish nothing if you're succeeded by a Democrat president. We got them on the balls of their you-know-what right now. It's the time to knock out their nuclear facilities and cut the bullshit. Or maybe I'll find a more eloquent example for you. It'd be the article, actually not the article, the column in the Wall Street Journal today, which basically argues that that Trump can still pull this all out. and we'll discuss that. We'll discuss that in a little while as to how we can do that. But let me just make it a really simple little answer to it, and that is to be Reagan. I will tell you, as a person who has worked, who has been appointed to high office by only one president, Ronald Reagan, and to two, U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York and the third ranking official in the Justice Department. And if I may, I feel I can do this because I did it to myself. When I was in deep trouble and I couldn't figure out what to do, when crises were presented to me as mayor strikes and things like that, demonstrations that they said they could take over the whole city, and I told Mrs. Reagan this any number of times, and I just closed my eyes and I said, "What would my boss do? I'll be okay if I do that." What would he do? What would Ronald Reagan do? Because he was a much greater president than even now we realize, and we're beginning to realize what a great president he was. Well, I'll tell you what he wouldn't do. What he wouldn't do is to be bullshitted anymore by Iran. It's over. And I wish the president were utilizing people with a little more experience in the whole history of Iran in interpreting this for him, because it's not going to be worth the pay. I don't care what the guarantees are. I might make one exception to that. If Iran agreed to allow us to go in for 60 days and precisely hit with the help of the Israelis, precisely hit every one of their nuclear facilities. We know where they are. Just move all the civilians out and we'll just effing take them out. And it'll take them 10 years to rebuild that instead of 2 months, which is what an agreement would entail. But short of that, which is giving up their sovereignty, and I don't see it, the only way to do it is to do it the way they did it to us. I mean, don't feel bad. I mean, the Ayatollah has killed a lot of Americans. There are a lot of American families in tremendous grief that they don't have their sons and sometimes their daughters because of the Quds Force, Revolutionary Guard. A lot of the murder in Iraq was done by Iran. They murdered groups that I was working with, like MEK, 120. They've murdered actually 200,000, 120,000 of them. But 120, a group of us, bipartisan group of us, were trying to have America live up to its guarantee of protection for them. So getting rid of the Ayatollah is critical to passing on this government better than it was given to you. Because if you leave the Ayatollah there, there's no hope for peace in the Middle East. There's no hope for a reasonable degree of security for Israel. And there's going to be available anytime the Democrats want to inflate the balloon and they have some kind of an unholy relationship with Iran. Probably no one has financed Iranian terrorism, Ayatollah terrorism more than Obama and Biden. We're talking billions and billions and billions. Some of it in cash. They'll go back and do the same thing. If you leave the structure in place, got to destroy the structure. It's so obvious. I don't get it. I mean, I know there are people in the administration that strongly agree with what I'm saying. I just can't figure out why you wouldn't agree with that and what you think you gain with an agreement with Iran. China is flexing its muscles. China is putting out the administration, the president. In the case of the president, you don't have to worry about leaks and squeaks and peaks, and he tells you what he thinks. You might as well not even pay attention to leaks. He'll just tell you what he thinks. So he thinks right now that that they can make a deal with China, and that he's not going to be that hard on them. Now, I don't know what that means exactly. I do know it helped the market. Might have been the reason he said it. It's probably also true. I mean, we all know that he when he put the heavy tariffs on them, he was willing to reduce them if they were willing to take some of the restrictions off us. So that's not a big surprise. And even putting it the way you put it, I'll make a really good deal for them, is not a big surprise, nor anything that I'm concerned about, like I'm concerned about not taking out the Ayatollah and the nukes, or I'm concerned about leaning way too much in Putin's side than with the Ukrainian people. I'm not concerned about that statement. That's a smart statement. But what I am concerned about, and I don't know the answer to, is there's got to be a steel resolve here, Reagan-like. This is Israel did too much to put you in the eighth round with your senses gone, your defenses obliterated, and all I have to do is come in to substitute for Rocky and throw one right-hand punch and knock you out. Iran is set up for the destruction of the reign of terror. It would be a tragedy of immense proportions if we don't take that. For the good of the world. It's very hard to say that the killing of people will save lives. Now, if I substituted Hitler, and I said we took him and the Nazi Party out in 1936, would that have been a humane thing to do? Of course it would have. Of course it would have. Well, you're not just talking about they're paying for 50 years of terror and 50 years of killing innocent human beings and 50 years specifically of killing Americans. But you're protecting the world against future death and future destruction. And I know the goal of the president is to have peace in the Middle East. I don't know a stronger way to say this. It's unrealistic if you keep the Ayatollah in power. It's not going to happen. And the nuclear weapons have got to be so far taken away from him that it would take an act of incredible, 10 years of restructuring and rebuilding to get there. So that whatever the dishonest and crooked and traitorous Democrats who feel this way will do with them, they won't be able to be rebuilt that fast. It also would get Xi Jinping, if in the next 3 weeks, with the help of Israel or watching Israel and cheering them on and helping them, we took out all of their nuclear capacity and the Ayatollah ran off to, I don't know where, the space station. And all the crooked mullahs went. He'd set Xi Jinping back too. Because right now Xi Jinping is making a very delicate, he's watching Trump. How tough is he going to be on Putin? Because that might affect, and this I'm not sure of, but it certainly is something to worry about. That might affect his calculus and whether he hits Taiwan, where he's making a deliberate, aggressive gestures right now by surrounding the outer islands. He's going all around them. It's like circling the outer islands. And the theory always has been that if he was going to invade, he would take the outer islands and shell them from there before he, because they have, the big difficulty for the Chinese is they'd have to make an amphibious landing in Taiwan. And as you know, from the amphibious landings in the Second World War, they're very difficult to do. Well, I mean, D-Day was a great success, except we lost more men on that day than any other war, any other place except the Civil War, when we were losing on both sides. So yeah, it was a great success, but it was a tremendous, it was the biggest loss we ever encountered. And I'm telling you, we knew how to do amphibious landings better than anyone. No one ever did as many or as successful as MacArthur. So when we think about China, and we've got to watch the fact that they're sending us signals by upping the threat on Taiwan. And believe me, it's in direct It's directly calibrated to what they think the U.S. will do or not do, which Z sees a practical demonstration of in how we deal with Ukraine and how we deal with Israel. We say that we can do a deal. The Chinese say, the Chinese say both out of both sides of their mouth. The Chinese experts and American experts on China say it's impractical. And if we were to drop the tariffs in half, it wouldn't do much good. And that the one really legitimate, I think they're all legitimate, but everybody's against tariffs. The one really legitimate tariff war is with China, because it takes on not only a financial aspect, but it takes on a national security aspect. And it has to be done if we want to be independent. And by independent, I don't mean completely independent, but safe enough so that when we have critical needs, we don't have to depend on China. If we have to depend on some countries, it better not be China. And we found out a long time ago with the pandemic how dependent we were on them for pharmaceuticals. We are dependent on them for chips. We're dependent on them for so many things. Now, we've got to break that dependence. And he's doing a great job of doing that with higher level technology. And we're off to a great start on that. Well, now if we're going to have to, in a minute or two, switch over to X. And there, we will obviously go into a little more detail on this, but I really want to talk about the very strange situation that we had judges arrested today who were harboring illegal aliens of the worst kind. But this has been going on for years, and for years I've been saying these people who do sanctuary cities the way they do it are directly violating federal law. What the hell are you fooling around for? The United States Constitution has a clause called the Supremacy Clause, and it makes federal law supreme over state law, where there is a federal law and it's a legitimate area of federal power, which is limited. But no one doubts that the federal government has the preeminent power over immigration. How can each state deal with immigration? It has to be done. It's like, let the states do foreign policy. And immigration, in a way, is a sub-function of foreign policy. So on this question, there's no liberal conservative disagreement. There's no question of original intent. This is as obvious as the nose on your face to any lawyer, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, except the lawyers in the bar associations that disbarred me, who are crooked and dishonest. So we're going to review that because this is going to be seen as, they're cracking down on. They're not cracking down on judges. They're cracking down on people who are violating the law. What's the difference if you hide the criminal in your basement and you're a dock worker or you're a judge? It's much worse if you're a judge. Where do judges get to be these kings now? You know how many crooked judges there are? As many as there are crooked other people. There's nothing particular about judges that makes them honest. In fact, because so much of the process, for example, in my city is purely crass political, they're probably proportionally less honest than the general population because they don't get their jobs honestly. They get their jobs through Democratic bosses who have an unfortunate tendency in New York for 106 crooked. So when you see these judges, sure, there's some great ones. And of course, they have to be respected because of their office. But don't get shocked if they violate the law. And there should be no resistance in arresting them as common criminals because they're worse than common criminals. And this whole sanctuary city thing, if you analyze it in any way other than a very, very corrupt way to try to destroy America, is completely illegal. It violates federal law. It interferes with the legitimate functioning of the federal government, which is to protect us against illegal immigration. We're not, whatever you Democrats like to tell you, the law says we shouldn't have illegal immigration. Common sense says we shouldn't have illegal immigration. And preservation of our sovereignty says we shouldn't have illegal immigration. With illegal immigration and open borders, you can't have a country. We got really close under Biden of losing our country if we didn't, and we're getting it back now. Well, you have a great weekend. We're going to do the best we can to see if we can get on X, and you watch us and give you some updates on the funeral, because
if you want to watch it live, I believe it starts at 3 a.m.
Well, I don't know about 3 a.m., but I mean, you start, when you get up, when you get up, take a look on X, and who knows, we may be trying to get.
If I'm up at 3 a.m., I'm going to come knock on your door.
Oh, I will. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very, very significant event. But of course, the main event will be the selection of the next pope, about which a great deal rests. So again, we talked about the people. We need you to pray for everybody, of course, and to pray for the things that are important to you. But I would ask you to especially pray for the poor people of Ukraine, because when I talk about how bad Zelensky is, it's completely opposite with the people of Ukraine. They're some of the most wonderful people in the world. And if they could only get an honest government, and if they can only get an honest government, it would be terrific. Pray for the people of Israel, pray for the people of Iran, and you go over to X right now. We'll be there in about 2 minutes. God bless America.